When I was 14, I woke up one day in a soft, comfortable bed that wasn't mine. I slowly got up. Oh, my head was really hurting. I looked around the huge room, and I had no idea how I'd gotten here. My eyes grew wide as I looked up at the walls, flecked with gold, and the heavy velvet curtains. One whole wall was taken up with a huge flat-screen TV. Where was I? All of a sudden, this old couple I'd never seen before came into the room, smiling at me. Who are you? Where are my parents? The woman said, "Don't be silly, Jihan. We are your parents." And she kept smiling at me like a lunatic. "What are you talking about? My name is Lisa, and I can't remember who my parents are, but I know that you aren't them." The old man started laughing.
Oh, what an imagination. Your name is Jihan Kanan. You're our daughter, and you live here in this house with us.
I lay back on the crazy soft pillows. I was so confused, and my heart was pounding. I looked for my phone, but it wasn't in my pocket. Just then, this old white-haired doctor came into the room.
You must rest, Miss Kanan. You took quite a hit on the head when you fell off your horse.
Horse? I'd never sat on one in my life. Just as I lay back to fall asleep again, I saw the doctor winking at the old couple before he left the room. Something strange was going on here, but I was too tired to work it out at that moment. Hi, I'm Lisa from Turkey, and this is the crazy story of how losing my memory made me a wealthy billionaire. But before I continue, please click like and subscribe. The next morning, I left the bedroom and went down the grand staircase to the breakfast room. The house was like a palace. There was a maid in the room, and she actually curtsied and said, "Good morning, Miss Kanan." I started to wish that this was actually my life. I figured I might as well eat before I left, so I sat down to have some salmon and poached eggs with some freshly squeezed orange juice. If I had a breakfast fit for a princess every day, I think I would remember it. Once I was full, I started to walk towards the huge front door. I had to get out of this house of weirdness and figure out what had happened to me. Just then, a young guy came to me and said,
"Hey, Jihan, where are you going?"
This guy was so gorgeous. I basically swooned. He was smiling at me, and for a second, I almost thought about staying. But then I remembered that I wasn't Jihan, so I pushed him out of the way and went out the front door. The garden was the size of a football field. I started to run towards the massive gates at the end of the drive, still wearing the silk pajamas I'd woken up in. I could hear that boy shouting behind me, "Come back, Jihan!" But I kept running. Just then, I heard the roar of an engine. My dad was coming down the driveway towards me.
"Please, Jihan, come back inside. You're not well."
I had no choice. I walked back to the house and pushed the door open. With its solid gold door handle, the woman said, "You've taken quite a bump to the head, Jihan, so it's normal that your memory will be affected. I'm your mother, Mrs. Kanan, and this is your father, Mr. Kanan." He smiled.
"This is our home, and yours too. As you can see, we are quite comfortable."
That obviously meant that they were billionaires. Maybe this wasn't the worst thing to have happened to me. The hot boy said,
"And I'm Oliver. I'm your cousin, just visiting from Switzerland. I'm going to help you until your memory comes back, okay?"
He smiled, and I melted. They all seemed really nice, actually, even if they were weird. I mean, who cares? They were rich, and I didn't even know where else to go. Over the next few weeks, I slowly began to accept my new life. My name was Jihan, and I was now one of the elite. I was driven to school in a fancy limousine with 2 personal bodyguards. Turns out, Jihan was really popular at her school. The boys would fight over getting me food at lunch and asking me out on dates. The girls obviously saw me as the leader of the pack and were always getting me gifts. I loved all my teachers here and was acing all my exams. I even went abroad for an international math competition and brought the trophy home. My hair was colored by a celebrity hairstylist twice a month, and a makeup artist was part of the team that got me ready for school every day. I had a wardrobe full of designer clothes and shoes. The maids and the butler brought me snacks whenever I wanted, and my personal trainer kept me in shape. I didn't remember what dreams I had before, but this was the life of any girl's dreams. The mansion was a really bizarre place, though. Every other day, I'd lose my way and stumble into a strange new room. Once I walked into a room where a bunch of women were weaving yarn on spinning wheels. When I asked them who they were, they only looked at me and smiled. I ran off feeling rather creeped out. I could go anywhere in the mansion, except the last room in the west wing. I'd been told it was off limits, but my curiosity got the better of me one day, and I sneaked into it when no one was around. I looked around the huge room and felt a shiver go down my spine. It looked like an abandoned nursery. There was a wall covered entirely with a faded painting of baby cupids flying in the clouds. On a huge bookshelf were lots of stuffed animals and a collection of dolls. In one corner, there was a crib that looked like it had been recently polished. I picked up the pink blanket lying in it. Who did these belong to?
You're not supposed to be here.
I nearly jumped out of my skin when I saw Mrs. Kanan standing in the doorway with a strange smile on her face. I quickly mumbled that I'd lost my way and walked out. As she locked the door, I could feel her eyes following me. These people were definitely weirdos. I was riding my horse one day with Oliver when a man I'd never seen before approached the stables. I could hear him arguing with Oliver, and I rode my horse closer to hear what they were saying. The man was shouting,
"I have to see her. You can't stop me."
When I got closer, I could see the man was about 50 and looked half crazy with his torn clothes and bloodshot eyes. Suddenly, he spotted me and started staggering in my direction.
"There you are. I know what you're doing. You're not getting away with this. Get away from here, or I'll call the police."
Oliver pushed the man away roughly, but he wouldn't leave. When some guards started to approach him, the man turned and started to walk away, but he kept looking back at me for a while. When I asked Oliver who that man was, he said it was just some crazy homeless person. He pulled on the reins of my horse and we started to ride away. A year or so had passed of my amazing life as Jihan. One day when I walked into the living room, I found my parents talking to each other in low voices. They stopped the minute I entered the room.
"There you are, Jihan. We were just discussing that we want to move you to an elite private school, which will get you on track for going to the right university."
I was really happy to hear it. And the best part was, Oliver was coming too. He was officially my best friend by now. The weird part was, they added 2 new bodyguards. I literally had my own entourage now. Oliver explained that if people realized I was related to the Kanans, someone might kidnap me for ransom. I shrugged. I always thought they were way too paranoid and weird about my security. I hit it off with everyone pretty quickly at my new school. The boys were swarming as usual, but I had my sights set instantly on a particular cutie, Ben. I was busy daydreaming of my first date with Ben when the teacher walked into the classroom with a new girl and introduced her as Brittany. She looked around and smiled at everyone, and suddenly our eyes met, and she looked like she'd seen a ghost. All the color just drained from her face. She stared at me for a few seconds before she walked to her seat in a daze. I could feel her glancing at me through the lesson. I wondered why she was acting so weird. During recess, I walked over to her and said, "Hi, I'm Jihan. I'm also kind of new around here. Want to come sit at my table?" She looked at me strangely, but after a few seconds, she smiled and said she'd love to. Brittany and I became friends pretty quickly. I found out that she was from a poor family and had made her way to this school on a scholarship. She'd often ask me about my family and would look at me in wonder as I told her about my life. I pretty much had everything she didn't. I decided to take Brittany under my wing. "You're so pretty, Britt. I'm gonna let my team do their magic on you. And I know just the place to get you a cute new wardrobe." I took Brittany to my favorite designer stores. As she was trying clothes on, I had to admit, she looked really good. As we were leaving the mall, I saw Ben from school walking towards us. I quickly stepped in front of Brittany to hide her from his view and said hi to him with a big smile. But he just said,
"Can you move aside, Jihan? I came over to say hello to Brittany."
His face looked like a heart emoji while he was talking to her, and I felt furious. The next day at school, I could tell how everyone was noticing Brittany a lot more than usual. Normally, when I walked in with my outfit of the day, I had girls oohing and eyeing over me, but today they were all over Brittany, telling her what good taste she had. She just smiled and accepted all the compliments. Like, "Hello, I handpicked that dress for you." At school a week later, we got a math test back. The teacher handed me my paper and said,
"Brilliant work as usual, Jihan."
But then he handed Brittany her paper and said,
"And even better work from you, Brittany. Top of the class."
I tried to look like I didn't care, but I felt like I'd been slapped. Was Brittany actually smarter than me? Ugh. I felt so mad at her. At lunch, I decided not to sit with her, but then I noticed that a lot of my friends were going over to her table, and if Ben was any closer to her, he'd be sitting in her lap. As I went through my phone, I saw a selfie she'd just put up with Ben 2 minutes ago, and it already had 300 likes. Seriously? Was she an influencer now? Just then, Oliver came and sat at my table, laughing.
"Man, that Brittany sure is funny. Oh, guess this riddle she just told me. 10 fat ladies tried to fit under a small umbrella, but none of them got wet. How did they do it?"
Ugh, I don't care.
"It wasn't raining."
and he burst out laughing while I rolled my eyes. That wasn't even funny. I couldn't believe I ever felt sorry for this witch. I really needed to put Brittany in her place, and I knew just where to do it. The tennis court. All those private lessons from Serena Williams' coach were about to pay off. I playfully challenged Brittany to a one-on-one game, and she instantly agreed. Half the school had gathered to watch us play. I knew she played tennis, but I had no idea she was this good. She was giving me a really hard time out there, but I had the lead. I smirked at her across the court as the crowd cheered for me. She served the next ball so viciously, I couldn't even react as it headed for me at bullet speed. It hit me straight in the forehead, and I flew in the air and fell backwards. My head hit the ground, and everything went black. When I came around, the coach and a bunch of people were gathered around me, looking anxiously. I spotted Brittany's worried face, and suddenly it felt like a switch had been turned on in my head. I suddenly knew exactly who I was, and I also knew exactly who Brittany was. The competitive little witch. I drifted off to unconsciousness again. Later that night, as the Canaans flew about here and there to get me food and make me comfortable, I couldn't help smiling to myself. I'd finally figured everything out, but I wasn't letting them in on my secret. Not yet. The next day at school, Brittany ran over to me, looking really sorry. "Listen, Jihan, I never meant to actually hurt you," but I simply ignored her and walked away. I kept ignoring her every day for the next 2 weeks. Then one day, she stopped me in the hallway. "What's going on?" "Listen, you creep, I know you, and I know what you're doing." You got your memory back?" "Yeah, and there's no way I'm coming to live with you and your crazy family. I'm staying with the wealthy old couple." "Listen, I know the Canaans have many connections, but you know I have a way to ruin you and them, and there's nothing you can do about it. What do you want?" "I want to live with the Canaans. You need to convince them to keep me." "I swear, Lisa, you'll regret it if you don't." A few days later, Brittany moved in. It wasn't hard to convince my parents. They agreed immediately. The Canaans gave her the bedroom next to mine. I was so angry to have her with us. After putting up with her snooty behavior both at school and home for the next few weeks, I'd had enough. I wasn't going to let her hold anything over me, even if it might cost me my perfect life. I went to see my biological mother to tell her everything the Canaans have been doing. The house was old and dirty, even worse than what I remembered. The door was already opened, and I entered to see my mom asleep on the couch. "Mom, it's Lisa, your daughter." Half asleep, Mom mumbled, "Yeah, what do you want?" "Mom, I'm back." Mom got up lazily and looked at me like nothing had happened. "You're not supposed to be here. I sent your sister to you. Enjoy her company. Now leave and shut the door behind you." I was super shocked. She gave me away? What was going on? I decided to ask the Canaans about all this. When I reached home, I found everyone celebrating Brittany's birthday. They were having the biggest party ever, and all the important and wealthy people were there. They didn't even think about letting me know. I spotted Brittany, and she was all over Oliver. She was hugging him and touching his face. I took her aside furiously. "Stay away from him. He's mine." "Oh yeah? What are you going to do about it?" "Listen, I don't know what you and Mom are up to. I went to our old house and she kicked me out." "Oh yeah, she gave you away to the Canaans when you lost your memory. Dad left and she was poor. She had to give away her least favorite child, and that's you." I yelled at everyone to stop this stupid party. The Canaans looked terrified and asked everyone to leave. When the guests were leaving, I heard a familiar voice. As the crowd parted, I saw Mom. "Oh, I invited her." Mom entered, glaring furiously at the Canaans. "Where's my money, you thieves?" "Let's just discuss this privately." "I don't give you my daughters for free. It's not my fault that you can't have children. You want children? You pay to have them." "Okay, so Mom gave me a way to get money from them?" "Mom, it's okay that they're late to pay this month. I spent a lot of their money recently. Be a little patient, Mom." "A monthly payment? What on earth is going on?" Suddenly we heard a loud noise, and a huge old man entered the room with our bodyguards trying to stop him. He smelled so bad, and then I saw his face. It was the man who had come years ago when Oliver and I were riding our horses. I remember exactly who he was now. He was my dad. Mom looked shocked and furious to see him. "What on earth are you doing here?" Dad glared at her. "Oh, you thought I wouldn't find out what you've been up to? If you're making money off our daughters, I want my share." Mrs. Canaan turned to me with tears in her eyes. Can't you see how crazy your parents are? We're sorry we lied to you, but we really love you and we can give you everything you truly deserve. Looking at my own parents and then at the Canaans, I made a decision. I want you to legally adopt me and Brittany. These people don't deserve to have us, and you don't have to pay them another lira ever again. Brittany looked ecstatic, and the Canaans hugged us both in delight as the guards carried away our screaming parents. Brittany and I improved our relationship and became closer. We both graduated from the best colleges in the country. Today, 8 years later, we are celebrating Brittany's wedding. And no, our biological parents weren't invited.